Listen to me, you little bitch. I don't give a damn what hood you slithered out of, but on my goddamn plane, my word is law. Got it? Crack. The sound was sharp, ugly, and absolute. Crystal Vance's palm, decorated with cheap acrylic nails, connected with Dr. Anya Sharma's face, with a visceral violence that seemed to suck all the air out of the cabin. A collective gasp rippled through the passengers. The high-end tablet, a prototype not yet released to the market, tumbled from Anya's hands and shattered on the floor. Her prescription glasses, a simple but elegant pair of Warby Parkers, went flying, skittering underneath the seat of a terrified-looking businessman in 19A. The echoes of the slap died, replaced by a tomb-like silence. Crystal, a 29-year-old flight attendant with a chip on her shoulder the size of a carry-on, towered over her victim. Her finger, a weaponized stick of cheap jewelry, jabbed down at Anya's face. That's what happens when your kind doesn't learn to listen the first time. Have you ever been pushed so far, so humiliated in public, that your entire being screams for blood-soaked, immediate revenge? But instead of giving in to that primal rage, you take a deep, slow breath and choose a path 1,000 times more devastating. That's the choice that was made on Apex Air Flight 921 from Chicago to San Francisco, exactly 7 minutes ago. And trust me when I say you are not going to believe the level of corporate takedown you're about to witness. Before we even dive into the absolute chaos that led to this moment, do me a favor. Smash that like button and hit subscribe, because the story I'm about to tell you is going to change the way you see every flight you ever take. And drop a comment right now. What's the craziest thing you've ever seen on a plane? Let's rewind the clock. 45 minutes earlier, Dr. Anya Sharma, the woman now nursing a bright red handprint on her cheek, stepped onto her own aircraft. Not just an aircraft she was a passenger on, an aircraft she owned a significant percentage of. As the founder and CEO of Apex Air, she had a monthly ritual, an unannounced, deep-cover mystery passenger evaluation. She would dress down, book a coach seat under a different name, and experience her billion-dollar company through the unfiltered lens of a regular customer. Today's test flight, she thought as she found her seat, was about to teach her more than she could ever have imagined, and it would end up costing one employee absolutely everything. Dressed in a faded MIT hoodie, ripped jeans she'd had since college, and a pair of worn-out Nike sneakers, she looked less like a Fortune 500 CEO and more like a student heading home for break. Her boarding pass read Seat 3A, a first-class suite, but a special request logged in the system by her executive assistant had reassigned her to 20C, a cramped middle seat in coach. It was here, in the trenches, that the real truths about company culture were revealed, not in polished PowerPoint presentations delivered in sterile boardrooms. That's when Crystal Vance appeared, her authority practiced, and her smile as plastic as the emergency oxygen masks. At 29, Crystal had been with Apex for 4 years. She'd built a reputation among her superiors as an efficient, no-nonsense flight attendant who kept a tight ship. But among passengers, especially passengers of color, her reputation was for something else entirely. "Excuse me." Crystal's voice was laced with an instant, unearned condescension. "Your ticket says 3A. This is 20C. Don't tell me you're one of those people trying to scam your way into a better seat, hoping no one notices." Anya looked up from the prototype tablet where she was reviewing the highly confidential Q3 logistics reports. "There must be a misunderstanding. I requested this seat change. It should be in your system." Crystal let out a short, barking laugh that turned the heads of several passengers in the nearby rows. "Honey, please. I've been doing this for 4 years. I've seen every scam in the book." Her voice grew louder, performative, for the audience she was cultivating. "You people are always trying to game the system, looking for a handout." The man in 19A, a portly executive named Gregory Feldman, smirked and nodded in overt approval. He'd clocked Anya the moment she boarded. The torn sneakers, the beat-up hoodie, the braids. It was a look that, to him, screamed trouble. He felt a small thrill of satisfaction. Finally, someone was putting these people back in their place. "Ma'am, I assure you, my confirmation is right here on my phone," Anya said, her voice remaining perfectly level, a stark contrast to Crystal's escalating hostility. She reached into her pocket for her personal iPhone. In a move of shocking aggression, Crystal snatched the phone right out of her hand. "Airline property is not for you to handle. Passengers like you, if you break something, you can't afford to replace it." Her eyes raked over Anya's clothes with theatrical disdain. "Those scuffed-up sneakers and that ratty sweatshirt tell me everything I need to know about your financial situation." This was it. The moment the encounter went from a customer service issue to a full-blown incident. In row 22B, a college student named Brianna Jones, who ran a popular social justice TikTok account, knew exactly what she was seeing. She discreetly propped up her phone and started a live stream. "Y'all, you have to see this," she whispered to her phone. "Flight attendant on Apex Air going full-on racist right now, profiling a black woman for zero reason. This is insane." Her viewer count started to tick upward. 75, 150, 327. Anya, incredibly, remained composed. The gears in her mind were turning, analyzing, documenting. This was no longer a mystery shopper evaluation. It was now a case study in systemic failure. "I understand there seems to be some confusion, but if you would just scan my boarding pass." "Stop. Lying." Crystal's voice rose to a near shout, sharp and brittle. "I know a troublemaker when I see one. You're holding up my entire flight with this ghetto drama." A few rows back, an elderly woman named Martha whispered to her husband. "Well, it's about time someone had some discipline. In my day, people knew their place." She watched, a grim satisfaction on her face, remembering a time when such public humiliations were common and unchallenged. But not everyone agreed. In seat 18A, a man named Marcus Thorne felt a knot of dread tightening in his stomach. As an assistant U.S. attorney, he recognized the clear pattern of escalating targeted harassment. He knew this was more than just bad customer service. It was a civil rights violation in the making. He quietly angled his own phone, pressed record, and began gathering evidence for a federal case. Brianna's livestream was exploding. The comment section was a torrent of outrage. "This is textbook racial profiling. Fire her! Apex Air, get your employee! That woman is being so calm. I would have lost it by now." Her viewer count blew past 500, then 1,000. Crystal, high on her own power, doubled down. She grabbed Anya's shattered tablet from the floor. "Company property. I'll be confiscating this until we land. You clearly have no idea how any of this works." Before she tucked it away, the screen flickered one last time, displaying the words, "Q4 Apex Air Executive Strategy Session. Eyes only. CEO." But Crystal, blinded by her prejudice, saw nothing. She also failed to notice the subtle, embroidered MIT logo on Anya's hoodie, or the corner of the boarding pass still in Anya's hand that read, "Status, Apex Black Diamond, Lifetime Elite." "Ma'am, I need that tablet for my work." Anya's voice was still even, still professional, but now carried a hint of ice. Crystal laughed, a full-throated mocking sound. Work? What work could you possibly have? Let me guess. Selling fake hair on Instagram? A pyramid scheme? Is that it? Grigory Feldman in 19A chuckled audibly. The cabin's atmosphere grew thick with tension. A clear line was being drawn, with some passengers enjoying the spectacle, and others growing visibly uncomfortable with the raw, naked bigotry on display. Anya reached again for her phone, this time with the clear intention of documenting the harassment for her own records. I need my phone back now. I have the right to put that away, Crystal screamed, her face contorted with rage. You people always want to record everything instead of just following simple instructions. Brianna's livestream comments flew by too fast to read. The view count hit 2,500. This is assault waiting to happen, Brianna whispered. She's completely unhinged. The confrontation hurtled toward its inevitable, violent conclusion. Anya tried one last time, holding up her boarding pass. Just look at this. It has all the information you need. But Crystal was far beyond procedure. This had become personal. Her prejudices were now in full control. I told you to stop your goddamn lying. Maybe this, she hissed, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper, will finally teach you some respect. Then came the slap. Fast, hard, and unforgiving. Crystal's palm met Anya's cheek, with that sickening crack that echoed through the quiet hum of the aircraft. Silence. Total, absolute, shocked silence. Somewhere a can of soda slipped from a passenger's hand and clattered to the floor. A baby started to cry. Brianna's phone captured it all in perfect, horrifying clarity. Her viewer count jumped from 2,500 to 10,000 in a single second. The comments became a single, unified roar of digital fury. She hit her! Assault! That is a felony! Call the police now! I hope you like jail, Karen. Crystal's pathetic justification hung in the stunned air. Maybe next time you'll think twice before you disrespect the cabin crew. On the floor, among the shattered pieces of the prototype tablet, were the papers that would have explained everything. Executive summaries, agendas for the upcoming board meeting, quarterly reports with Anya's signature scrawled across the approval line. Inside her worn backpack was not one, but two devices, her personal iPhone and a heavily encrypted corporate satellite phone reserved for the CEO. But Crystal saw none of it. Her prejudice had constructed a reality, and she could see nothing outside of it. All she saw was a black woman in cheap clothes who didn't belong. Slowly, deliberately, Anya touched her stinging cheek. Her voice, when she spoke, was quiet, but it cut through the shocked silence like a diamond blade. I want everyone on this aircraft to remember exactly what you just saw. Mind your own business, Crystal snapped at Marcus Thorne, the prosecutor, who had stood up to protest. She got exactly what she deserved. But the damage was already done, and spreading at the speed of light. Brianna's video had been screen-recorded and shared hundreds of times in under 3 minutes. The hashtag #AnfingMai Air Assault was starting to trend on Twitter as other passengers began uploading their own recordings from different angles. From the moment her palm made contact, a clock started ticking. Crystal Vance just had no idea. She had exactly 8 minutes until the plane landed. 8 minutes until her entire world, everything she had ever known, was systematically and utterly imploded. She had just committed felony assault against her own boss, the woman who founded the entire airline, and 10,000 people had just watched her do it live. As tales of justice go, this one would be brutal, and swift. But first it had to get much, much worse. Timeline: 8 minutes until landing. 8 minutes until Crystal Vance's life is over. David Williams, the senior flight attendant, hurried down the aisle, his face a mask of concern. At 45, with 20 years of service at Apex, he could read a cabin's atmosphere like a book. The whispers from passengers and the palpable wave of tension radiating from row 20 told him this was no mere argument. This was something else. What in God's name is happening here? David's eyes, trained to assess situations in seconds, took in the entire tableau. The scattered confidential papers, the vivid red handprint blooming on Anya's cheek, the sea of smartphones all pointing in their direction like an impromptu firing squad. Crystal immediately straightened up, her confidence bolstered by the arrival of a colleague. This passenger was disruptive, non-compliant, and was threatening the safety of the crew. I had to take decisive action to maintain order. Threatening. Marcus Thorne's voice boomed with the authority of a federal prosecutor in a courtroom. Are you kidding me? She just assaulted a passenger, David. I saw the entire thing from start to finish. This woman never raised her voice, never made a single aggressive move. Your colleague is the one who was a threat. David looked closely at Anya's face. He saw the angry mark, but he also saw something that deeply unsettled him. Her almost supernatural calm. The way she was methodically gathering the scattered corporate documents, as if preparing for a business meeting, not recovering from an assault. This entire situation felt wrong. Dangerously wrong. Crystal, David said, his voice low and serious. Did you put your hands on a passenger? She was reaching for her phone to record me after I gave her an explicit order not to, Crystal retorted, her voice high and defensive. She was aggressive. You know how these people can get. I had to de-escalate before it got out of hand. Brianna's live stream was now a social media phenomenon. The viewer count had skyrocketed to 35,000. Her comments were a blur of pure rage. Her TikTok was being mirrored on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. The wildfire was no longer contained to the plane. It was burning across the globe. A passenger named Kenji Tanaka in seat 24C tweeted, "Just witnessed a flight attendant for Seicho Apex Air brutally slap a black woman for literally no reason on Flight 921. Video to follow." Within 60 seconds, it had over 1,000 retweets. Up in first class, the purser, Janet Morrison, received a frantic call from ground control on the cabin phone. Her face went pale as she listened. Flight 921, this is SFO Tower. We are getting dozens of emergency alerts and social media reports of a violent incident on your aircraft. Confirm status immediately. The authorities have been notified. Unaware of the full, horrifying context, Janet grabbed the intercom. Folks, we're experiencing a minor issue with a non-compliant passenger. Cabin service will resume shortly. We appreciate your patience. But her words were drowned out by the reality unfolding on dozens of live streams. The situation had escaped the crew's control. It now belonged to the internet. David tried to deploy his standard de-escalation training. Ma'am, on behalf of Apex Air, I sincerely apologize for any confusion. We will get this sorted out on the ground as soon as we land. Confusion? Anya's voice had a new timbre, an edge of pure steel that made David freeze mid-sentence. Your colleague just committed assault on federal property. That isn't confusion. That is a felony under United States Code Title 49, Section 46504. Her flawless, unprompted citation of federal aviation law hung in the air, stunning everyone within earshot. This wasn't a typical passenger. David felt the power dynamic in the cabin shift tectonically. A deep, ominous grinding of gears he couldn't comprehend. 6 minutes to landing. Captain Eva Rostova's voice, clipped and serious, crackled over the intercom. Flight attendants, be advised. We have airport security, federal agents, and airline executives waiting for us at Gate C11. SFO Tower has confirmed multiple credible social media reports of a crew-on-passenger assault on this flight. Federal agents. The words struck Crystal like a physical blow. Her manufactured confidence began to crumble. "This is ridiculous," she stammered. "It was a necessary action to ensure cabin safety." But Anya was no longer paying attention to her. She had retrieved her second phone from her backpack, a sleek, military-grade satellite device. Her first call was short, the words spoken in a coded shorthand. "Cassandra, code black. Flight 921. CEO is compromised. Activate the Sentinel protocol. I want our entire legal team and the crisis comms group spun up before we touch the ground." David overheard fragments. CEO? Crisis protocol? It made no sense. This woman was in coach. Yet, the sophisticated device in her hand, the quiet authority in her voice, it suggested connections and a level of power that sent a chill down his spine. Brianna's viewers were piecing it together faster than the crew. The comments flooded her screen. Wait, she has 2 phones? Those papers looked like corporate docs, not homework. She is way too calm. Something is about to go down. Zoom in on her hoodie. Is that an MIT logo? The hive mind of the internet was performing real-time detective work. She's not just some passenger. The flight attendant is about to get nuked from orbit. 4 minutes to landing. The call from ground control to Janet in first class was now bordering on panic. "Flight 921, we need a detailed report now. The FBI and the Department of Transportation have been officially notified and are en route to your gate. I repeat, the FBI is involved." In her haste, Janet hit the wrong button. Her panicked response accidentally broadcast over the main cabin intercom. "FBI? Why the FBI? What is going on back there?" The word FBI electrified the cabin. The mood instantly shifted from shocking entertainment to a federal crime scene. Crystal went completely pale, her bravado finally shattering like cheap glass. "FBI? For what?" she pleaded, looking around for support from the passengers who had smirked and nodded just minutes before. But their faces were now shields of neutrality. Grigory Feldman was suddenly pretending to be asleep. Martha, the elderly woman, was studying the wrinkles on her hands, as if they were ancient runes. Meanwhile, Anya methodically finished organizing her documents. Her movements were calm, precise, and utterly terrifying in their deliberation. She now held a stack of papers, quarterly reports, board minutes, executive comms, all clearly marked Apex Air, CEO Eyes Only. David saw the official letterhead, the corporate seals. His training in corporate liaison, however brief, kicked in. These were not documents a passenger should have. These were the crown jewels of the company, materials only the most senior leadership would ever see. "Ma'am," David asked quietly, his voice trembling slightly. "For our incident report, may I please see your identification?" Anya looked up, and for the first time, a small, chilling smile touched the corners of her mouth. "Of course, David, though I suspect you and your colleague are about to find it rather illuminating." She reached into her backpack, bypassed a simple wallet, and pulled out what was clearly a high-level corporate ID badge. It was a deliberate, theatrical movement. Every passenger still recording zoomed in. 2 minutes to landing. The cabin descended into a silence so profound you could hear the hydraulic whine of the landing gear deploying. At least 30 different passengers had now recorded parts of the incident. Bort. Apex air assault was the Chapter 1 trending topic in the United States. Crystal, in a last desperate act of self-preservation, grabbed the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we experienced a minor disturbance with an unruly passenger who refused to follow crew instructions. The situation has been resolved according to federal safety protocols." "Unruly?" Marcus Thorne's voice was pure prosecutorial ice. "She assaulted a compliant passenger. We all saw it. We have the unprovoked violence on video." A chorus of voices erupted around the cabin, a passenger revolt in real time. "That's a lie. She hit her for no reason." "Pure racism. We have it all recorded." Anya Sharma stood up slowly, the stack of documents held in her hand like a verdict. Her movement commanded the attention of the entire cabin. This was not the posture of a victim. This was the posture of an executioner. The plane touched down with a gentle thud, the engine screaming in reverse as it decelerated. Timeline. Landed. Rolling toward Gate C11. The time for consequences had arrived. As the aircraft taxied toward the gate, the scene outside the windows confirmed the gravity of the situation. Flashing blue and red lights painted the tarmac, bouncing off the fuselage. Airport police vehicles were parked in a semicircle around the gate, and standing beside them were stern-faced men and women in dark suits, FBI. But inside the cabin, the only authority that mattered was the woman in the faded MIT hoodie, who now walked calmly to the front of the plane. The handprint on her cheek was a dark, angry testament to the violence she had endured. Every single phone was trained on her. "Ladies and gentlemen," her voice was now completely different. It was crisp, powerful, and resonated with an authority that could command boardrooms and silence billionaires. "My name is Dr. Anya Sharma. I want to personally thank all of you for so thoroughly documenting the events of this flight. Your recordings will prove invaluable in the federal prosecution that will now commence." Brianna's live stream hit 75,000 viewers. The comments were a digital tidal wave. "Who is this woman? She sounds like a CEO, not a victim." "Something biblical is about to happen. That flight attendant's soul just left her body." Crystal could feel the floor disappear from beneath her feet, but she couldn't understand why. In a last pathetic gasp of her evaporated authority, she squeaked, "Ma'am, please return to your seat. Federal regulations require—" "Oh, I think I'll stand right here, Crystal." Anya's voice cut her off, the use of her first name a blade twisting in the wound. "You asked me a question earlier. You asked what hood I slithered out of. Allow me to answer you with complete and total accuracy." David, the senior flight attendant, felt the blood drain from his face. It was as if a mask was being peeled away, revealing something terrifyingly powerful beneath. "I didn't slither out of a hood. I walked out of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology with a PhD in aeronautical engineering. From there, I went to Stanford for my MBA. And for the past 25 years, I've worked my way up from a gate agent at a defunct airline to where I am today, having climbed every single rung on this industry's ladder." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle into the suffocating silence. Then came the first execution. Anya reached into her backpack and produced the corporate ID badge. It wasn't a flimsy plastic card. It was a thick titanium laminated credential with multiple holographic seals and a prominent biometric chip. She held it high for every camera to see. Dr. Anya Sharma, Chief Executive Officer, Apex Air, employee identification number 01001. The sound of David's clipboard hitting the floor was the only sound in the cabin. Janet, in first class, let out a choked gasp that was accidentally broadcast over the still open intercom. Grigory Feldman's face went a waxy, corpse-like gray as he realized he had been smirking and nodding in approval as the founder and CEO of the airline was being profiled, abused, and assaulted. But for Crystal, the world didn't just crack. It atomized. No, that's impossible, she stammered, her voice a ragged whisper. You can't be. That's a fake. Fake? Anya's voice was a weapon of quiet, devastating precision. Am I as fake as the signature on your employment contract? The one that I personally sign off on every year? Am I as fake as the person who approved your last raise? A raise of $300, if I recall? Or am I the person who just watched you, an employee of my company, commit a violent felony on federal property while nearly 100,000 people documented your every move live on the internet? Okay. Pause. Can we just acknowledge the nuclear bomb that just went off in this cabin? If you think this flight attendant is toast, hit that subscribe button right now and comment below. What should the CEO's first move be? Let's see your ideas. Brianna's stream exploded. 100,000 viewers. Shares multiplying into the tens of thousands. The hashtag was now CEO Slap. You see, Crystal, Anya continued, pulling a document from her stack. I conduct these undercover evaluations on the first Monday of every month. It's a practice I implemented myself after our internal reports showed a 42% spike in passenger discrimination complaints last quarter, complaints that have already cost this company $12 million in legal settlements. This specific route, Flight 921, was chosen because it has the highest complaint rate in our entire domestic network. I came here today to find out why. David finally found his voice, though it was strangled with fear. Dr. Sharma, I had no idea. We had no idea who you were. And that is the entire problem, isn't it, David? Anya's question was a surgical strike. If you had known I was the CEO, what would have changed? Does a person's net worth determine their right to be treated with basic human dignity? Is respect a privilege reserved only for the wealthy and powerful? Marcus Thorne, the prosecutor, was typing furiously into his phone, his fingers flying across the screen. This wasn't just a slam-dunk assault case anymore. It was a masterclass in documenting systemic corporate failure from the top down. Anya then pulled out her encrypted corporate phone and began to read from it with the cold finality of a judge passing sentence. Crystal Vance, employee number 7349, hired May 22, 2021. Current salary, $41,200 per year. In the last 20 minutes, you have violated the following federal laws. She began to tick them off on her fingers. 1. U.S. Code Title 49, Section 46504. Assault aboard an aircraft. Maximum penalty, 20 years in federal prison. 2. U.S. Code Title 42, Section 1981. Denial of rights under color of law. And 3. Multiple Apex Air corporate policy violations, including Section 9.1 regarding professional conduct, Section 12.4 on racial discrimination, and Section 21B regarding unauthorized physical contact with a passenger. All violations, she added, gesturing to the phones still pointed at her, have been comprehensively documented on over 30 video recordings, with precise timestamps and testimony from at least one federal prosecutor. She glanced at her phone again. Our stock, Apex Air, ticker APX, opened this morning at $58.14 a share. In the 15 minutes since your assault was live-streamed, That stock has fallen by $7.30 per share. That represents a loss of $146 million in shareholder value. All because of you. On the speakerphone, a voice could be heard. Anya, it's Patricia from Legal. We have the FAA, the DOT, and the NTSB on a conference line. The NSOIDO ACP has already issued a press release demanding a full federal investigation. What are your orders? Patricia, Anya replied, her voice calm and authoritative. Prepare to file federal assault charges against employee 7349. We are providing no legal support. This is a criminal matter, not a corporate one. Also, draft a public statement. Zero tolerance. Immediate, sweeping reforms. We're getting ahead of this. We're going to set a new industry standard today. The door to the aircraft hissed open. FBI Special Agent Martinez was the first one through, her badge held high. Dr. Sharma, Agent Martinez, we'll take it from here. Thank you, Agent Martinez, Anya said, handing her a folder. Here is a preliminary file. It contains the employee's record, a list of federal and corporate statutes she violated, and contact information for Mr. Thorne in Seat 18A, who will be acting as a federal witness. Crystal Vance finally crumpled, her body unable to support the weight of her reality. Dr. Sharma, please, I have 2 kids. I need this job. I'll do anything. I didn't know who you were. Anya looked down at the sobbing woman, her expression not of anger, but of a profound, weary disappointment. Crystal, there's one last thing you need to understand. The cabin was dead silent, save for the clicks of phone cameras. You didn't just slap a passenger. You didn't just slap your CEO. You slapped the woman whose personal investment of $500 million saved this airline from bankruptcy during the pandemic. I personally owned 17% of this company. Every seat, every engine, every tray table on this plane. I own a piece of it. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper that was somehow louder than a scream. Your entire lifetime earnings, every dollar you have ever made or ever will make, would not be enough to cover the cost of the jet fuel for this one single flight from Chicago to San Francisco. Agent Martinez knelt and placed a hand on Crystal's shoulder. Crystal Vance, you are under arrest for assault on an aircraft. The metallic click of the handcuffs was the final sound, the sound of a life ending. As she was led away in tears, her last sight was of dozens of cell phone cameras capturing her ruin, broadcasting it to a world that would now know her only as the flight attendant who made the most expensive mistake in aviation history. $146 million lost. One career obliterated. One company's fate hanging by a thread. And one woman who understood that true power isn't about revenge, but about rewriting the entire system so that this could never, ever happen again. 48 hours later, the boardroom at Apex Air Headquarters felt more like a war room. Screens on the wall displayed real-time data feeds. The stock price, having plummeted, was now cautiously rebounding to $55. Social media sentiment, once 99% negative, was shifting as Anya's decisive actions dominated the news cycle. Anya stood at the head of a massive mahogany table, her senior leadership team arrayed before her. The handprint on her cheek had faded to a pale bruise, a ghost of the slap that had sent shockwaves through an entire industry. Here are the decisions, she announced, her voice leaving no room for debate. Crystal Vance, terminated for cause, arrested. Bail was denied. She is facing a minimum of 5 years in federal prison. Derek Williams, the senior flight attendant, suspended for 90 days without pay and demoted. His failure to immediately intervene is inexcusable. Janet Morrison, the purser, demoted to a non-supervisory role with a 20% pay cut. Her mishandling of the initial ground control communication was a catastrophic failure of leadership. Crystal's public humiliation was absolute. Her tear-streaked mugshot was on every news network. An online mob had found and published her address. A court-appointed lawyer had released a pathetic, ghost-written apology that was universally ridiculed. But for Anya, punishing the guilty was only the first, easiest step. The real work was systemic change. In the next 72 hours, she rolled out a plan so revolutionary it would be taught in business schools for decades. 1. The Seat 20C Initiative. Every executive, from the C-suite down to regional vice presidents, would be required to fly undercover in coach once a quarter. No special treatment. They would experience the company as its most vulnerable customers did. 2. The Zero Tolerance Mandate. A new one-page addendum was added to every employee contract. Any verified act of racial, ethnic, or gender-based discrimination would result in immediate termination and the forfeiture of all severance and benefits. No appeals. No second chances. 3. The Dignity Air app. A new feature was fast-tracked for the Apex Air mobile app. It allowed passengers to file a complaint about crew misconduct in real time, directly from the plane's Wi-Fi. The complaint would be instantly routed to a special response team at headquarters, bypassing local supervisors entirely. A verified complaint would trigger an automatic travel credit and a formal investigation within 1 hour. 4. Body cameras. Within 6 months, every single Apex Air flight attendant would be required to wear a body camera, a move fiercely resisted by unions, but which Anya pushed through with unrelenting force. 5. The Independent Ethics Council. An oversight board was created, comprised not of corporate insiders, but of leaders from the NU8ACP, the Anti-Defamation League, and other civil rights organizations. They were given unfettered access to company complaint data and the power to recommend binding policy changes. The results were immediate and astonishing. Apex Air's stock didn't just recover, it soared. It closed the week higher than before the incident. Corporate clients, who had been on the verge of pulling their multi-million-dollar contracts, not only stayed, but increased their business, praising Apex as a new leader in corporate social responsibility. Customer satisfaction scores skyrocketed. The airline that had become a symbol of racism overnight was now being hailed as a model of accountability. In Washington, D.C., a congressional committee, citing the Fonbarf Apex Air assault incident, began drafting the Dignity in Transit Act, a piece of federal legislation that would mandate bias training and body cameras for customer-facing employees across all transportation sectors. Anya Sharma had taken the ugliest moment of her professional life and used it as a lever to change the world. 1 year later, the annual Apex Air Company Town Hall was held in a massive hangar in Atlanta. Anya stood on stage before thousands of employees. Behind her, a screen displayed the results of the past year. Customer satisfaction, 98%, an industry record. Employee retention, 96%. Stock price, an all-time high of $72. Discrimination complaints, 0 for 365 consecutive days. The ripple effects were undeniable. The Dignity in Transit Act had passed into law. 5 other major airlines had adopted their own versions of the Seat 20C initiative. Business schools from Harvard to Stanford were teaching the APEX model as the gold standard in crisis management. After serving 10 months in a low-security federal prison, Crystal Vance was released. Humbled and bankrupt, She now works for a non-profit dedicated to anti-racism education. On the anniversary of the incident, she wrote a short, handwritten letter to Anya. It read, "Dr. Sharma, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. What I did was monstrous, but being held accountable for it saved my life. It forced me to see an ugliness in myself I never knew existed. Thank you for showing me what real strength looks like." Anya never responded, but she kept the letter. It was a reminder that true justice isn't about retribution, it's about transformation. From a single moment of hate, she had built a legacy of protection that would benefit millions of people for generations to come. That one slap had been an act of violence, but her response had been an act of genius. The system was broken. So she broke it further and remade it in the image of what it ought to be. What about you? Have you ever witnessed something you knew was wrong? A moment of injustice that seemed too big to fight? Share your story in the comments below. Your voice matters, your experience is valid, and every story shared is a vote for accountability. Real-life stories like this prove that sometimes the quietest person in the room has the loudest impact. If you were inspired by how one woman's strategic, brilliant response created a tidal wave of positive change, then subscribe to Black Stories. And always remember, the next time someone tries to put you in your place, make damn sure they understand that your place is at the top, and you're the one who built the building.